When Johnny Miles won the 1926 Boston Marathon, he shocked the world of running. Despite having never run a marathon in his life, the then 20-year-old Canadian took first place in the prestigious race with a record time of 2 hours and 25 minutes.
He was one of the best athletes in Canadian history. As a young boy, he was a native of Halifax, England, came with his family to Sydney Mines, Cape Breton.
Johnny's father went off to World War I, so Johnny quit school at the age of 11 and started working in the coal mines. When his father returned from the war, Johnny was able to get out of the coal mines and got a job with Cooperative General Store in the town Sydney Mines.
And the groceries were carried by a horse and buggy, and what he would do, he'd put on heavy boots and run beside the horse and buggy, and he realized, I'm pretty quick and I have some good endurance and maybe I should run a few road races.
Miles won a handful of junior events in the 1920s, coached by his father.
They took the train 27 miles out of Sydney, and on his winter clothes with his winter boots and all his winter clothing on, Johnny ran the 27 miles back home while his father had a stopwatch on him. And when he got home, he had done it in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And his father said, with a time like that and you in the winter clothes, you could easily win the Boston Marathon. The day before the Boston Marathon, when they went down there, Johnny and his father decided they would walk the course. So they walked the Boston Marathon and they got lost. And they asked the cop, where's the marathon go? The guy said, why do you want to know? And he says, my son is going to run the marathon tomorrow. He says, well, tell him to follow the guy in front of him. And Johnny said, I can't follow the guy in front of him. I'm going to be leading the race.
Well, in 26, the field was loaded at the Boston Marathon. You had a four-time Boston Marathon champion in the field. You had the reigning Olympic marathon champion in the field, and Miles was not expected by anyone to win, but he kept them in his sights, and on Heartbreak Hill, he passed.
And he won the race, set a world record. He was 4 minutes ahead of the second runner.
In 1927, Miles moved to Hamilton and lived in the Steel City, where he worked at International Harvester. Living in Hamilton, his running career took off. In 1928, he won the Canadian 10,000-meter championship and competed in the marathon at the Summer Olympics in Amsterdam, finishing 17th. The following year, he captured his second Boston Marathon, setting yet another course record in the process.
And so the most thunderous assault on records in the history of the Games began. All had taken
in the 1930 British Empire Games in Hamilton, Miles won a bronze medal in the marathon in front of his hometown crowd.
You know, it's interesting. Back in 2018, we at the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame ran a big promotion called the Top 15 Athletes in Nova Scotia History. And Johnny Miles, he was big back in the 1920s, so you'd figure recency bias would enter into the voting, but he is such a big name here in Nova Scotia. He has a couple of races still named after him to this day in this province that voters remembered. They know his name, and he was voted the 7th greatest athlete in Nova Scotia history. There are 3 Nova Scotians who have won the Boston Marathon. He's the only one to do it twice.
When Johnny was going to run this 10-mile race in Halifax, a young lady, newly married lady in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, a daughter of a well-to-do doctor in town, said, if young Johnny Miles wins this 10-mile race today, I'm going to name my baby after him. And Johnny won the race, and the next day she had a baby, and she named him Johnny Miles, the family name, Johnny Miles Williston. And he reconnected with Johnny 20 or 30 years later. He's a successful doctor in New Glasgow, and they've started the Johnny Miles Marathon. It's been run for 25 years now in New Glasgow by this fellow who was named after Johnny.
While the Johnny Miles Festival is always held in early August, the community's pride in its homegrown champion is really evident all year round.
Miles has been inducted into the Cape Breton Sports Hall of Fame, the Nova Scotia Hall of Fame, and Canada's Sports Hall of Fame, in addition to being named a member of the Order of Canada in 1982.
This is the jacket that Johnny wore in the opening day parade in the first British Empire Games. They were held here in Hamilton in 2030. And I'm presenting this to you as for your
cut.
Okay.
1930. Okay.
Sorry.
2030. Okay, you missed it.
I'm 100 years old.
And here's the jacket for the British Empire Games.
Thanks. It's a real honor and privilege to have Johnny Miles' jacket in the Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for honoring Johnny.
Thank you.
The Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame welcomes Johnny Miles.